You're scrolling through real estate listings at midnight, and every single house that doesn't look like it's about to collapse costs $500,000. The kitchen has laminate countertops from 2003. The carpet is beige. There's fake wood paneling in the basement, and the listing agent has the audacity to call it a starter home. Meanwhile, you're sitting there doing mental math on your salary, wondering if you've somehow missed a massive promotion or if the entire housing market has collectively lost its mind. Spoiler alert, it's not you, it's the math, and the math is absolutely brutal. My name is Vince, and today we're going to do something that real estate agents hate. We're going to calculate who can actually afford a $500,000 house in 2026. Not who the bank will give a loan to, but who can legitimately afford it without turning their life into a financial stress simulator. Because there's a massive difference between qualifying for a mortgage and actually being able to sleep at night after you sign the paperwork. Let's start with the uncomfortable reality. In dozens of US markets right now, $500,000 is the baseline. That's not getting you a mansion. That's getting you a 1,200 square feet box with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a yard the size of a beach towel. In cities like Denver, Austin, or anything within commuting distance of a major metro, $500,000 is what normal people are expected to somehow come up with for normal houses. The median household income in America is around $84,000. So we're asking people making $84,000 to afford homes that cost 6 times their annual income. If that ratio sounds insane to you, congratulations, you're paying attention. But everyone keeps saying, you can do it. The mortgage broker says you're approved. Your parents bought a house on way less. Some influencer on TikTok is flipping houses with no money down. So what's the problem? The problem is that everyone is lying to you about what affordable actually means. Let's start with the down payment, because that's where most people's dreams go to die. The old rule was 20% down on a $500,000 house. That's $100,000 cash. Let me say that again. $100,000. The median savings account in America has around $8,000 in it. So you're not just a little short, you're $92,000 short. And before you say you'll just save it, let's do that math too. If you're making $84,000 a year and somehow manage to save 10% of your gross income, which almost nobody does, you're saving $8,400 per year. At that rate, it'll take you 12 years to save the down payment, assuming housing prices don't go up, which they absolutely will, okay? So you skip the 20% down payment. It's like you put down 5% or 10% instead, which is what most people actually do. Congratulations, you just unlocked a new expense called PMI, Private Mortgage Insurance. This is the fee you pay every single month for the crime of not being wealthy enough to put 20% down. It's essentially a poverty tax that runs anywhere from $200 to $400 per month, depending on your loan. You're paying extra money every month for insurance that protects the bank, not you, because they're worried you might default. So, you're already starting from a position of financial punishment. Now, let's talk about the actual mortgage payment. You put down 10%, which is $50,000 that you somehow scraped together. That leaves you with a $450,000 loan. At current interest rates, somewhere in the 6%, 7% range, depending on your credit, your monthly mortgage payment is going to land around $1,750 to $2,850. That's just principal and interest. That number doesn't include a single other thing you need to actually live in the house. Let's add property taxes. Depending on where you live, you're looking at anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 per year, which works out to roughly $500 per month if we're being conservative. Then there's homeowners insurance, which has skyrocketed in the past few years thanks to climate change, making everything more expensive to insure. You're looking at another $250 to $350 per month depending on your location and whether your house is in a flood zone, fire zone, or tornado alley. Then there's maintenance, the thing everyone forgets about until the water heater explodes at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. The general rule is to budget 1% of your home's value per year for maintenance and repairs. Right? On a $500,000 house, that's $5,000 annually or about $470 per month. And don't forget the PMI we talked about earlier. Tack on another $200 to $400. So let's add this up. Mortgage payment, $2,850. Property taxes, $500. Insurance, $300. Maintenance, $400. PMI, $3. Your total monthly housing cost is now sitting at roughly $4,367. And that's assuming nothing breaks. You don't need a new roof, and your HOA doesn't randomly decide to repave the entire neighborhood and send you a $3,000 bill. Here's where it gets really fun. Financial advisors will tell you that you shouldn't spend more than 28% of your gross monthly income on housing. Banks will approve you if your total debt to income ratio is under 43%. Let's reverse engineer this. If you're spending $4,367 per month on housing, and that represents 28% of your income, you need to be making roughly $187,000 per year. If we use the more lenient 43% rule, you still need to be pulling in around $150,000 annually. And now we arrive at the punchline. Only about 10 to 20% of US households make $150,000 or more, which means 80% of American households cannot comfortably afford a $500,000 house under any reasonable financial standard. This isn't an opinion. This is just math being cruel. But you're thinking, people are still buying these houses. Who are these people? Some of them have dual incomes in high-paying fields. Some of them have family money. Some of them are stretching themselves so thin that one medical bill or job loss would collapse their entire financial life. Let me show you what that actually looks like when you run the numbers on a real household trying to make this work. Meet a household we'll call the Johnsons. Two working professionals pulling in a combined $160,000 a year. That puts them well above the median, solidly in the upper middle class. They should be comfortable, right? Let's watch what happens when they buy that $500,000 house. First, their gross income of $160,000 sounds impressive until the IRS shows up. After federal taxes, state taxes, FICA, and maybe a modest 401k contribution, they're taking home around $9,500 per month. That's their actual money to live on. Now, subtract that $4,367 monthly housing cost. We calculated they're left with $5,133 for literally everything else in their lives. 2 car payments because they both need to commute. There goes $800. Car insurance for 2 vehicles, another $250. Gas because nothing is walkable in suburbia, $300. Student loans because they needed those degrees to get the jobs that qualified them for the mortgage conservatively, $600. Health insurance premiums that their employers don't fully cover, $400. Groceries for a family that's trying to eat reasonably healthy, $800 if they're careful. Utilities for that bigger house, electricity, water, gas, internet, phones, $450. We're now at $533 remaining. And we haven't touched clothing, entertainment, kids' activities, car repairs, medical copays, or the psychological need to occasionally leave the house and pretend you have a life. Oh, in savings. Emergency fund, retirement beyond that modest 401k. Good luck. This household is spending 46% of their take-home pay on housing, not 28%. Not even 35%, nearly half. And these aren't irresponsible people. They're not buying jet skis or taking European vacations. They're just trying to live in a house that the market tells them is normal. Here's what that actually feels like day to day. It feels like checking your bank account before buying groceries. It feels like saying no to your kid's field trip because that $35 might be needed if the check engine light comes on. It feels like lying awake at 2 a.m., doing mental math about whether you can afford new tires this month or if you need to push it to next month and just pray it doesn't rain. It feels like being one unexpected expense away from disaster at all times. The HVAC breaks. That's $5,000 you don't have. Someone rear-ends you and your deductible is $1,000. You're putting it on a credit card. Your kid needs braces. You're financing dental work like it's a car. This is the reality for households earning $160,000 trying to own a $500,000 home. Now, imagine what it looks like for the household making $120,000 or $100,000, or God forbid, the actual median income of $84,000. At median income, buying a $500,000 house isn't tight. It's not even stretching. It's financial fantasy. It's mathematically impossible without either massive external help or accepting a level of risk that would make a skydiver nervous. But here's what makes this truly insidious. The housing market doesn't care about these numbers. Sellers list homes at $500,000 because that's what comparable houses sold for. Banks approve buyers at 43% debt to income because technically the loan won't default immediately. Real estate agents encourage buyers to stretch because their commission depends on closing the deal. Nobody in the transaction has an incentive to tell you that you're about to financially drown yourself. The system is designed to get you into the house, not to ensure you can comfortably afford it long term. And once you're in, once you've signed those papers and moved your furniture, you're trapped. You can't just decide 6 months later that this was a mistake and walk away without destroying your credit and losing your down payment. So, people stay. They stay in homes they can't afford, working jobs they hate because they can't risk any income disruption, slowly watching their savings evaporate, wondering why they feel so stressed when they're supposedly living the American dream. Let me tell you what the harsh truth sounds like. For probably 70 to 80% of American households, a $500,000 home is not affordable. Not sustainably, not without accepting a level of financial precariousness that would have been considered reckless a generation ago. This isn't about personal failure. This isn't about not working hard enough or not being financially savvy. This is about a housing market that has completely disconnected from income reality. Home prices have increased roughly 400% since 1990. Median household income up about 180% in the same period. The math doesn't work. It cannot work. It will not work. And yet we keep pretending it does. We keep telling people that home ownership is essential for building wealth, which technically is true, but ignores the part where you have to survive the mortgage first. We keep perpetuating the myth that if you just budget better, skip the avocado toast, and work a side hustle, you can make it happen. But you can't budget your way out of a structural affordability crisis. You can't side hustle your way into a down payment when rent is eating 40% of your income. You can't manifest a lower interest rate through positive thinking. What you can do is understand the actual numbers so you can make an informed decision. Maybe that decision is to keep renting and invest the difference. Maybe it's to look at a $350,000 house instead, even if it means a longer commute or a smaller yard. Maybe it's to acknowledge that homeownership in your current market simply isn't viable right now. And that's okay, because here's what nobody tells you. There is no prize for buying a house you can't afford. There is no trophy for being house poor. The stress of barely making your mortgage payment every month will erase any pride you felt the day you got the keys. The real question isn't whether you can technically get approved for a $500,000 house. The real question is whether owning that house will actually improve your life or just transfer your money to a bank while you stress about property taxes. And for most people, when you run the honest numbers, the answer becomes uncomfortably clear. But here's the good news. Not right now is not the same thing as never. And being priced out of a specific house at a specific moment doesn't mean you're priced out of building wealth, stability, and a life you actually enjoy. It just means you need a better strategy than signing the biggest loan they'll approve. So let's turn this into something useful and practical, because the solution isn't panic. The solution is a plan. And step one is to stop using the bank's approval as your budget and start using your own sleep at night number, meaning your total monthly housing cost, mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, HOA, PMI, everything, should still leave you enough breathing room to save, invest, and handle a surprise without spiraling. Because if your housing payment eats your entire financial oxygen, the house isn't a home, it's a monthly emergency. And a good rule in real life is that after you pay for housing, you should still be able to build an emergency fund, contribute to retirement consistently, and keep your savings moving forward instead of backwards. And if buying a $500,000 house makes that impossible, then the answer isn't work harder. The answer is to change the deal, which can look like buying less house on purpose, not because you're settling, but because you're choosing freedom over flex. And that might mean a smaller home, a townhouse, a condo, or a place with cosmetic issues instead of a money pit. Because stepping stones are not failures when they keep your life calm. And if you still want to own without becoming house poor, you can also buy differently by looking for leverage that isn't denial, like a duplex or an ADU where rent offsets the payment, or a short-term house hack that helps you build margin, or choosing areas where taxes, insurance, and maintenance risk are lower, because the sticker price is not the real price. And sometimes the smartest move is renting on purpose and investing the difference. Because if rent is one number and the real cost of owning is another, that gap invested consistently can become your down payment, your safety net, and your long term wealth engine. And renting isn't throwing money away if it buys you flexibility, stability, and the ability to invest, while being house poor is throwing money away with extra stress and worse consequences. And if you're not ready today, the power move is making a 2-year plan instead of a desperate decision by improving credit so your interest rate isn't bullying you, paying down debt so the mortgage doesn't stack on top of everything else, building a real emergency fund before you buy, and growing income in a stable way through skills, promotions, or a better job. Because the housing market doesn't care how hard you work, it cares what hits your bank account. And the biggest mindset shift is remembering your goal isn't just to own a house. Your goal is to own your life. Because a house is only a win if it makes your life better, more stable, more joyful, more free. And if it turns you into a stressed out employee of your own mortgage, it's not wealth, it's a cage with a lawn. So if you're watching this and feeling discouraged, you're not behind, you're not failing adulthood. You're doing the rare thing, which is choosing math over pressure and reality over hype. And that's how you actually win. Because wealth isn't a zip code or granite countertops. Wealth is margin, options, and peace of mind. So do the math, set your real budget, pick the path that keeps you financially alive. And remember, you don't need to buy the biggest house you can qualify for. You need to buy the life you can actually afford to enjoy. And if you want more breakdowns like this, where we take money, business, and investing and make it understandable to everyone, subscribe to Vince's Finances. Hit the like button so more people stop getting tricked by bad math. And drop a comment of what topic you would like me to cover and what to improve in the videos to help make it enjoyable for you.